revolutionary struggle stretches back to the 1930s. How can UP continue to be a relevant part of this great collective effort towards radical transformation? I need not go through many details of how the National Democratic mass movement spread nationwide after the formation of the Kabataan Makabayan in 1964, with key founding leaders mostly coming from UP, and the consequent flowering of National Democratic-oriented youth and student organizations in secondary and tertiary level schools and in communities of the urban poor across the country on the heels of the first quarter storm of 1970. While the resurgent revolutionary movement will always be associated with the student activists, it is important to remember that even earlier, UP was already a seedbed of new ideas, where nationalists and freethinkers like Teodoro Goncillo, Salvador P. Lopez, Cesar Adib Mahul, Ricardo Pascual, Leopoldo Llaves, Renato Constantino, and others did research, published their books, engaged in intellectual combat, and took promising young people under their wings. Books written by Goncillo, notably The Revolt of the Masses, and Constantino's Dissent and Counter-Consciousness, and later A Past Revisited, were among the staple readings of the activists. Academic freedom, so strenuously defended, ensured that acrimonious debates nevertheless produced good fruits on all sides. Even we, who did not enjoy the luxury of these sharp discussions, vicariously benefited from them. Student activism in the late 1960s and early 1970s thrived on any and all issues: foreign monopoly of the oil industry and oil price increases, the American war of aggression against Vietnam, the presence of U.S. military bases in the Philippines, graft and corruption, foreign domination of the economy, police brutality and fascism, even beauty pageants. In 1971, UP experienced its own Diliman Commune, inspired by the student support of the drivers striking against the increased cost of fuel and police intrusion into the campus. For 9 days, the campus was barricaded with classroom tables and chairs, and activists operated DZUP round the clock. The students dropped out of school to go full-time into mass organizing, supporting labor strikes and other revolutionary work. The movement very soon spread to other schools, then to the provinces. And when Ferdinand Marcos attempted to solve the political crisis by imposing martial law in 1972, UP students and faculty alike were put to a test. Would they resist putting theory into practice, or would they search their books again to justify compliance, if not subservience? Historic choices were made. The nation moved forward, while some were left behind. Armed only with their theories and a few unreliable weapons to defend themselves, the students who fanned out to the countryside found that they would be learning their own lessons from the peasant masses, much more than they would be teaching. At the same time, the sincerity and dedication of this youth, almost all in their teens, inspired the people, who then found their own ways of supporting and undertaking the struggle for change and making it their own. It has become commonplace to point out now that the issues that spurred student unrest and militant protest 40 years ago are still burning issues today. But they have become part of the landscape, so to speak. We remember how 3 centavo increases in the price of diesel would spark strikes in protest. Today, gasoline is still rising. The price of gasoline is still rising from 60 pesos per liter but many now simply resign themselves to walking or taking the train. The U.S. war of aggression, billed as a war on terror today, domination of the American economy, and the renewed presence of American military in the Philippines since 2002, we'll say, what changed? It's all the same, and yet not quite the same. If in the past hackles were raised by the Americanization of the UP, today it's about commercialization of education and privatization of the university that critics within and outside UP say are some disturbing aspects of the new UP Charter. Under Republic Act 9500, the new UP Charter, aside from its usual academic research and service duties, the UP as the national university will have as an enhanced fund-generating corporate structure, orientation, and operation. It is also mandated, quote, to regularly study the state of the nation in relation to its quest for national development in the primary areas of politics and economics, among others, unquote. It is tasked to identify key concerns and to formulate responsive policies on these concerns and give advice and recommendations to Congress and the President of the Philippines. I recall that this is the responsibility of the National Economic and Development Authority, or the NEDA, to which many UP economics professors have been seconded or named to head it over the years. Can the UP give advice and recommendations that would be counter to established policies or programs of the government? That is one question. What to do with the new charter now will be a big challenge to the UP community. How will it maintain the highest possible level of academic excellence and academic freedom, and without impairing these roles, ensure the financial viability of the corporate entity that it will now become? I share the apprehension of many of you that the reorientation and expanded role of the UP will surely align it to the requirements, to serve the requirements of global capital via what's called neoliberalism or globalization, with its three prescriptions: liberalization, privatization, and deregulation. The destructive impact of unbridled globalization over the last 18 years in every part of the world has been widely acknowledged. First, among the poorest countries, such as those in Africa. Then among the less developed countries, including the Philippines. And now, in the very heartland of capitalism itself, the United States. What then is the sense in proceeding along this perilous path? The UP is thus forewarned of the risks it faces as it sets out to forge its path through the neoliberal terrain. For now, the adherents of neoliberalism are dominant, both in the Macapagal-Arroyo government and I assume within the UP itself. And they are much more optimistic than I am. Still, we all know that the road will not be easy to traverse. The militant activism that underwent the ups and downs of ideological and organizational struggles in the last decade, even as it was able to mobilize a significant part of the UP community to post-tuition fee increases and commercialization of education, can build up strong opposition again. The debates, the struggles over policies and programs will play out in the UP, as they have in the long tradition of the university, with the Scholar ng Bayan and their supporters in the UP community vigorously asserting the right to have a bigger say in how the university will be run. Undoubtedly, all these issues provide a legitimate basis for militant activism to persist and spread throughout society, and especially within the campuses of colleges and universities, including the UP. On the other hand, the university can maintain its social relevance only by continuously taking part in the dynamics of the larger society. It must do this not only through the militant participation of the UP community in political questions of the moment, but also through the concerns that guide its teaching and research activities, among the most important of which today are the delineation and affirmation of our Filipino identity in the midst of globalization and speeding up the broad process of democratization. In this regard, there have been criticisms that the present-day national democratic activists tend to sound outdated in their political sloganeering. One such criticism from the UP, going way back to 1993, referred to the activists as, quote, a dwindling breed who isolate themselves by ranting obsolete slogans and reenacting the first quarter storm, unquote. The old slogans of the 1970s, for instance, imperialismo ibagsak, may grate on the ears of many people, but this cannot negate the continuing validity of the slogan's message. Even if U.S. imperialism now sports a new name, its essential exploitative character has not changed. In the era of neoliberal globalization, this has only worsened. It is true, however, that more creativity on the part of the new generation of activists would be highly appreciated. I have personally witnessed the emergence of new cultural forms or themes of protest in the street marches, rallies, and cultural presentations all over the country. It seems to me that the cultural activists are now becoming more adept at comprehending the social and economic conditions and the struggles of the people, and are expressing this in various ways that appeal to a broad audience. Another criticism raised against present-day activists is actually an old recurring complaint, that they tend to be arrogant and self-righteous, a weakness that turns off many people, especially from UP, who would otherwise be more open to the movement's analysis and proposals. Already in 1970, Angel Backing pointed this out in his lecture at Abelardo Hall I mentioned earlier. And he suggested that, quote, the recognition that the masses are really the most powerful controlling elements in a revolution, the most stable base, and the profoundest source of revolutionary wisdom, unquote, should be an effective antidote to such self-importance. All too often, Backing observed, intellectuals without firm links with and faith in the masses tend to go astray, unable to maintain the clarity of their vision and the steadfastness of their affiliations, unquote. Apparently, Backing was aware that the so-called diverse distractions and preoccupations of the students and the periods of lull in their activities might make it difficult even for regular activists to maintain revolutionary ardor and momentum. To solve this difficulty, Backing counseled, quote, it would be necessary to relate in a sustained manner the activities of students to the problems and the struggles of the masses, especially of the organized